why has the PR been so awful? I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you've said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception? An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? I mean, typically, the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there? And
are on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative.
A small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok.
This is my video update on this Monday morning, May the 6th. Let's talk about some news. And how about Mitt Romney interviewing Antony Blinken at the McCain Institute? Romney interviewing Blinken at the McCain Institute, the Uniparty, on full display. That is the Uniparty, everybody. There are no Republicans, there are no Democrats. There is just the Uniparty, which is this unholy alliance between the neolibs and the neocons. The merger of the neolibs and the neocons has given birth to the Uniparty, and you can see it on full display at the McCain Institute as Mitt Romney is palling around with Antony Blinken. Oh boy. And Romney, during this interview or discussion, Romney actually admits that the TikTok ban was all about anti-Israel short videos on the platform. And Blinken doesn't argue that point from Romney. He actually agrees with what Romney said about the banning of TikTok and how TikTok was an anti-Israel platform. Quite an admission from Romney and from Blinken. But let's talk a bit about Israel, because CIA Director Mr. Burns was in Egypt or is currently in Egypt, and he was trying to put together a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. The latest reports are that the ceasefire deal has collapsed, and I read reports saying that Israel was planning to enter Rafa. Even by this week, Israel was going to enter Rafa. So Burns went to Egypt. He tried to get a ceasefire deal, Hamas, and to get hostages released. Hamas was saying, yes, we will release hostages, but we want an end to the war. Netanyahu's position was hostages to be released, but it would only be a pause in the fighting. Egyptian officials were present mediating. Qatari officials were present mediating, but Burns couldn't get the ceasefire. At least that is how it looks at the time of this recording. And I think a signal that the negotiations had broken down and that Netanyahu had decided to enter Rafah was the fact that Israel closed down the Al Jazeera offices in Jerusalem. To me, that signaled that there was going to be no ceasefire and that Netanyahu had decided to enter Rafah, because closing down Al Jazeera is basically closing down Palestinian-friendly media in the region. And so if you're going to enter Rafah, You don't want Al Jazeera reporting on the incursion into Rafa. So things look like we are going to get an incursion into Rafa. At least that's how it looks at the moment. Burns could not come through with a ceasefire deal. Isn't it interesting that when the United States wants real diplomacy or is serious about engaging in diplomacy, they send CIA Director Burns. They never send Blinken when they're serious about diplomacy. It's always CIA Director Burns that has to handle the big boy stuff. But Burns couldn't deliver this time around. So a lot of people have been asking me about the Israeli forces detaining the Greek Council's bodyguard, the Greek Council's personal guard at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And I haven't really, well, I couldn't report on this because I've been going through Greek media and no one knows what happened. Like, why did Israeli forces remove the Greek Council's personal guard? Violently remove the Greek Council's personal guard. The only reports that I was getting from Greek media was that there was some sort of a scuffle, some sort of a fight that took place, and Israeli forces then decided to remove the bodyguard and arrest him. That's all we know. The Greek Foreign Ministry, they contacted the Israeli Foreign Ministry, and they got the personal guard released from prison, but that's the only information that I have. I read in one publication in Greece that Greek authorities are going to open up an investigation to see what happened, but we're never going to know what exactly happened. So that's the only information I have with this story. I understand that the video went viral, but to be quite honest, I have no context. And the Greek media isn't providing any context as to what happened either, and I doubt we're going to actually find out what exactly happened. All I know is that there was some sort of a fight, some sort of a scuffle, and they removed this guy and put him in prison, and the Greek Foreign Ministry got him released. Anyway, Axios is reporting that the U.S. put a hold on an ammunition shipment to Israel. The Biden administration last week put a hold on a shipment of U.S.-made ammunition to Israel, two Israeli officials told Axios. Why it matters: it is the first time since October 7 attack that the U.S. has stopped a weapons shipment intended for the Israeli military. So a lot of analysts are asking, what is going on here? Is the Biden White House trying to put pressure on Netanyahu and on Israel to agree to a ceasefire by stopping the delivery of ammunitions? Is that what is going on here? Or is the Biden White House choosing Ukraine over Israel? They've decided that Ukraine is going to get ammunition, whatever ammo we have, and Israel is now going to take second place next to Ukraine. Is that what's going on here? No, I don't think any of this stuff is going on here. I think that the answer to this stoppage in ammunition from the United States to Israel, I think the answer is very simple. The U.S. doesn't have ammo. I think that's what's going on. I think the U.S. is running out of ammunition, and they just can't send the ammo to Israel. That's why Pentagon officials are very quiet about what's going on. That's why the Biden White House, when they were asked by Axios what is going on, they're also very quiet about this stoppage in ammo to Israel. They just don't want to admit that they're running low on ammunition. There is no way that the Biden White House is going to choose Ukraine over Israel. That's a non-starter. So that analysis is no chance. Let's throw that analysis out the window. Is the Biden White House trying to pressure Israel to agree to a ceasefire by withholding ammunition? No chance. No chance. Biden has given Netanyahu a blank check. There is no way that the Biden White House would be able to stop weapons shipments to Israel if Israel wants weapons. That's never happened. That's never going to happen. So the only answer to this puzzle presented by Axios is that the U.S. simply doesn't have the ammunition. I think it is that simple, and that is why they are so quiet about this story from Axios. So let's now go to Asia Times and Ukraine and France, because Asia Times, they published a story the other day with the title, France sends combat troops to Ukraine battlefront. Will the deployment of a Foreign Legion unit commanded by French officers trigger a wider European war? So let's read a little bit from this Asia Times article and try to understand what is going on here. France has sent its first troops officially to Ukraine. They have been deployed in support of the Ukrainian 54th Independent Mechanized Brigade in Slavyansk, right on the front lines. The French soldiers are drawn from France's 3rd Infantry Regiment, which is one of the main elements of France's Foreign Legion. That's key. That is key. This is from France's Foreign Legion, okay? The decision to send Foreign Legionnaires is itself a peculiar French compromise. France is not deploying its home army, and besides the small number of officers, the men sent are not French citizens. So 100 Foreign Legion soldiers have been deployed to Slavyansk. The reporting is that the total number will be 1,500 Foreign Legion soldiers, not the official French army. And Asia Times is even saying that the men are not even French citizens. That is what Asia Times is reporting. So what is Macron up to? Well, according to Asia Times, this allows Macron, sending the French Foreign Legion, allows Macron to send troops to Ukraine and act like a tough guy without encountering much home opposition. That's because no French army soldiers are being sent, and there is no consequent conscription or other measures in the offing. This clearly reduces the potential fury of Macron's political opponents. So basically, Macron is able to send French troops without really sending French troops. That's what Macron is doing. And he can continue to play this strategic ambiguity game. He can send this Foreign Legion, he could send them to Slavyansk, which is right on the front line. They're going to get annihilated by the Russian military. So he's basically sending them to their annihilation. He can send them to Slavyansk. He can see the Russian reaction. He can see NATO's reaction. He can see the UK's reaction and David Cameron's reaction. He can see the US's reaction as these Foreign Legion troops get annihilated by Russia. Then he can send another 1,500. He can see Russia's reaction. He can see the collective West reaction. And he can play this strategic ambiguity game without having to say that he is sending French troops to Ukraine, official French army into Ukraine. And he can continue to position himself as the tough guy. So Lavrov, he sounded off on Macron's strategic ambiguity game, and here is what Lavrov said, speaking to the Bosnian Serb Alternativna TV on Sunday, Lavrov noted the French leader's recent interview with The Economist, in which he called Moscow the main threat to EU security, adding that Macron had adopted an ardent anti-Russian stance. According to the French leader, the ambitions of the mustache man and Napoleon were driven by the fact that these countries saw Russia as a threat, Lavrov claimed. I know how the power system is set up in France and how the French tend to see their role in Europe. I do not rule out that this caveman Russophobia that Macron is currently breathing might be necessary in order to try and become the leader in Europe by riding this topic, the foreign minister explained. Spot on from Lavrov. Macron, by sending this foreign legion contingent to Slavyansk, by playing up this anti-Russia tough guy role, this position that he's taken up to be the collective West's anti-Russian tough guy, he is trying to position himself as the de facto leader of Europe, of the European Union. Because Macron understands that the more anti-Russian you are, the higher up you rise. And what's more anti-Russian than actually sending troops, even though it's not the official army, but sending troops connected to France, to Ukraine, so that they can be annihilated by the Russian military. What's more anti-Russian than that? So Lavrov is, in my opinion, he's exactly right with what Macron is trying to do. Macron understands that Germany is weak and has been weakened significantly in this 2-year Project Ukraine, and he senses that now is his time to become little Napoleon, to become the emperor of Europe. And so he's trying to take advantage of everything that's going on and position himself as Jupiter, as little Napoleon. So we have another interview of Macron. He's giving a lot of interviews, isn't he? Macron warns about Russian missiles in a defeated Ukraine. The potential redeployment of Moscow's military assets would threaten not only Kiev's neighbors, but France itself, the president has said in an interview with the French daily La Tribune on Saturday. Macron, who has famously refused to rule out sending Western troops to Ukraine, once again advocated a policy of strategic ambiguity towards Russia, arguing that the key idea behind such an approach is to project strength while not giving too many details. Describing Russia as an adversary, the French president stressed that establishing priority limits would be interpreted as weakness. We must remove all visibility from it because that is what creates the ability to deter, he argued. Macron further noted that Ukraine is crucial to France's security because it is located only 1,500 kilometers from its borders. If Russia wins, the next second, there is no longer any security possible in Romania, in Finland, in Lithuania, and not in our country either. The capability and range of Russian ballistic missiles expose its all, he said. Well, you know, two can play at that game, Macron. Just like you are saying that Russia is a threat to France because it's only 1,500 kilometers away, and that is why the collective West needs to fight the Russian military in Ukraine. Well, Russia can also say that France is a strategic threat to Russia because France is only 1,500 kilometers away from Russia's border. So going by Macron's logic, Russia needs to neutralize France because it's right on Russia's border. I mean, it's only 1,500 kilometers away. Oh boy, interesting logic from Macron. And in a way, Macron's statement here to La Tribune, in a way, it justifies Putin's actions in Ukraine. It rationalizes the special military operation, doesn't it? Because Macron is saying if Russia were to control Ukraine, then it means that Russia is right on the borders with France, or almost on the borders with France, right? You only have Romania and a couple of other countries, and that's all that separates France from Russia. Well, if Ukraine was to be controlled by NATO, then that means that Russia has NATO right on its borders, has an unfriendly, aggressive, collective West right on its borders. And not 1,500 kilometers away, we're talking 1 kilometer away. So anyway, Macron and his strategic ambiguity. Boy, he's really playing up this strategic ambiguity. He's giving a lot of interviews, and I think Lavrov is right. Macron is trying to position himself as the leader of the European Union. And you know what? It's kind of working. I believe it is kind of working. Because not only is Macron trying to win favor with the collective West by taking a very anti-Russian, a tough position against Russia, but he's also seen by the Chinese as the leader of Europe. I really believe this. The Chinese, Xi Jinping, sees Macron as the only person in Europe that China can deal with, or can try to negotiate with and deal with. Maybe Macron's flip-flopping strategy actually works. Maybe his flip-flopping of Russia is evil one day and we need to go to war with Russia, and then the next day coming out and saying, maybe we should negotiate with Putin, or talk, not negotiate, talk with Russia. Maybe that strategy is kind of working, at least for now, because Xi Jinping, he arrived in France, and he actually wrote a very friendly, goodwill article. And Xi Jinping is basically telling Macron, he's signaling to Macron through this article that actually this was published in Le Figaro. So he's signaling to Macron through this article that, look, let's work together, China and France, to diffuse the conflict in Ukraine. Let's try to work towards peace in Ukraine. China and France. China can work the Russia side of things. France can work the European side of things, and together let's try to work towards a stable, peaceful Europe. That's the message that Xi Jinping is sending to Macron. He actually says in this article, both China and France value independence as two major countries. This is Xi Jinping's way of telling Macron, look, I know I can reason with you. I know I can talk to you. When you visited China, you were very receptive to what we were trying to tell you. And all you need to do, Macron, is break free of the United States, break free of their control over you, because Xi is telling France to be independent, to be an independent, sovereign country. And if you can find your independence and your sovereignty, then we can work together to deliver stability and peace in Europe. So Xi Jinping is in France. He's going to try to talk some sense to Macron. And I imagine that for 24 hours, you're going to have statements from Macron talking about France's excellent relationship with China, and how France agrees with China that there needs to be peace and stability in Europe and in Ukraine, and that Europe needs to start to talk with Russia and to talk with Putin. And you're going to get all of these goodwill statements from Macron. That's going to last for about 24 hours. Once Xi Jinping leaves France, we're going to get those statements from Macron for about 24 hours. Then Macron's going to get a phone call from the U.S., from the neocons and the neolibs in the Biden White House, and they're going to tell Macron, bro, shut the F up. What are you talking about? You better stop all this nonsense about stability and negotiations and peace with Russia and peace in Europe. And they're going to scare the bejeebers out of Macron. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know what info they have on Macron, but they're going to scare the bejeebers out of him. And Macron, in 48 hours, he's going to put out statements like France needs to go to war with Russia and France needs to send 20,000 troops to Odessa and NATO needs to start World War III with the Putin. So that's how all of this is going to go down. But, you know, China they're giving it one more chance. For some reason, Xi Jinping believes that he can talk with Macron. We'll see. We'll see if Xi Jinping is correct. So we have this article sent to me by a viewer of the channel from the Jerusalem Post with the title, Zelensky is in a predicament in the war against Russia. Zelensky has failed to achieve any of his goals and is leading his country into an abyss after losing many parts of Ukraine. This opinion article in the Jerusalem Post, it is devastating for Ukraine, devastating towards Elensky. It basically says that Elensky is a complete freaking failure. That is what this article is saying. He is a failure. He has not delivered on any of his promises. The guy's a clown and he needs to go. That's basically what this article is saying, but it is also saying that the collective West, the Europeans, they're not prepared to let go of Elensky just yet, even though there is no possible way of Ukraine defeating Russia or coming out of this conflict in better shape than when they entered this conflict. That is what this article is saying. So a very interesting article from the Jerusalem Post. This article also admits that Europe can't find ammunition and can't find enough weapons to compete with the Russian military. This article actually cites European officials as saying we can't compete with Russia when it comes to military production, and we don't even have the money or the resources to find the ammunition that Ukraine needs to continue its war with Russia. That's what this article actually admits to. Anyway, sticking with Project Ukraine, we have this news. Ukraine's creditors want their money back, according to the Wall Street Journal. Foreign bondholders paused Kiev's debt payments in 2022, but their patience is reportedly running out. The group, which includes investment giants BlackRock and PIMCO, granted Kiev a 2-year debt holiday in 2022, gambling that the conflict with Russia would have concluded by now. With no end to the fighting in sight, the lenders have now hired lawyers at Weil, Gottschall, and Manges and bankers from PJT Partners to meet with Ukrainian officials and strike a deal whereby Ukraine would resume making interest payments next year in exchange for having a significant chunk of its debt written off, anonymous sources told the WSJ. The group holds around a fifth of Ukraine's $20 billion in outstanding Eurobonds, the newspaper reported. While this figure represents a fraction of Ukraine's total external debt of $161.5 billion, servicing the interest on these bonds would cost the country $500 million annually, the bondholders said. This article from the Wall Street Journal is very simple. It's a very simple article. BlackRock is looking to get paid. BlackRock is looking to get paid in 2022. Biden promised BlackRock a whole ton of money from the overthrow of Putin's government, from the balkanization of Russia, from the complete takeover of Ukraine. They promised BlackRock a ton of resources and riches. And now BlackRock sees that Ukraine is losing and is going to lose, and the Biden White House is not going to be able to deliver what they promised. So BlackRock is now going to Ukraine and saying, okay, enough. We need to start getting paid. So $500 million in interest payments. Let's see it start coming in to our bank account, Elensky. Elensky's probably flipping out. Podolyak, if I have to make these payments, I lose some homes, eh? Yeah, Elensky's probably freaking out. 500 million annually. So that's a bad sign for Project Ukraine, isn't it? When BlackRock is starting to demand payments, that's when you know that things are coming to an end. The Wall Street Journal, they also put out an article with the title, Boeing's latest trouble is a jet part caught up in Russia sanctions. Plane maker can't deliver enough 787 Dreamliners after sanctions disrupted production of heat exchangers. So these heat exchangers that go into the Dreamliner, this was a joint venture between a U.S. company and a Russian company. And when the sanctions came into effect, the joint venture was called off and production was being done solely in the United States. And for a time period, the company in the U.S. was able to meet the demands of Boeing, but now they can't meet those demands anymore. And Boeing is in deep poo-poo. Sanctions really do work, huh? But they're not working against Russia. They're working against the United States. So let's do a clown world and wrap this video up. And today's clown world, I think today's clown world's a pretty obvious one. Alinsky, he gave an Easter, a Pascha address, a video address yesterday. And Alinsky, he said in his Easter address that God is on the side of Ukraine because he has a chevron with a Ukrainian flag on his shoulder. God has a chevron of the Ukraine flag on his shoulder. That is what Alinsky said in his Easter address to Orthodox Christians. Oh boy, was this on a green screen? I don't think so. Doesn't look like this was recorded on a green screen. But you know, a lot of people are making fun of this comment from Alinsky that God is with Ukraine and he has a Ukraine flag on his shoulder. Maria Zakharova, she said that Alinsky has suffered an overdose. Yeah, maybe, probably. But she said, and I quote, a chevron on God's sleeve is the same story as the rituals of ancient Ukrainians performed by them somewhere in Mesopotamia at a time when they discovered America, Zakharova said, referring to some internet memes mocking Kiev's narratives about the nation's origins. Yeah, the Banderites, they have some weird historical claims. Some very weird historical claims, like Ukraine was actually there was no such thing as ancient Greece. It was actually ancient Ukraine and stuff like that. Really wacko historical claims that have now become memes on the interwebs. That's what Zakharova is referring to when she says that Ukraine discovered America. Yeah, the Banderites have a strange view of history. They definitely have that. But, I think the real story here is not so much Elensky's God claim, but I think the real story here is Elensky's attire. His shirt. His shirt. That's the first thing I noticed. Il Libanese also noticed it. He said, Zelensky finally changed his shirt. Exactly right. That's the first thing that I noticed as well. He's not wearing green. Is there any green? I don't think there's any green. No. Nope. There's green in the background, obviously, but no, Elensky's not wearing a green sweatshirt. To me, that's the big story. That is a huge story. That should be the lead story for today's video. Elensky stopped wearing green. I don't know. Maybe it's laundry day. Maybe it's finally time for Elensky to start washing the sweatshirts. I think these sweatshirts, they smell a little. Podolyak, maybe we wash and I put something new on before I give this Easter message. What do you think, Podolyak? Podolyak's like, yeah. Yeah, not even Elensky number 5 is is working, Mr. President. Oh, man. Should we do one more? Do I have time for one more? Yeah, I think I could do one more. One more quick one. Ukraine to introduce extra university exam to expose draft dodgers. Some are using postgraduate courses to avoid their responsibilities, defending the country, its deputy education minister has said. This is an interesting story, actually. What's going on here is that Ukrainian men, some Ukrainian men, they're going to university or they're signing up to university in order to avoid military service and being sent to the front lines. And so what Ukraine is going to do now is that they're going to introduce more exams in university in order to weed out the military-aged men who are in university just to avoid military service from those men who are serious about their degree. So that's what the extra exam or the extra exams are going to do. An interesting story, I must admit. So that's the video, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin. And go to the Duran shop. Pick up some limited edition merch. The link is in the description box down below. Take care.